You think speaking up makes you strong, don't you? They told you to fight back, to respond, to prove your worth with words. And you believed them. You thought if you just explained yourself, if you just made them see what they did to you, they'd finally understand. You thought if you screamed loud enough, cried hard enough, or confronted them with the truth, they'd feel the pain they caused you. But let me tell you something. They don't care. They never did. And every time you react, you give them exactly what they want. They wanted you broken. They wanted you emotional. They wanted you desperate for their approval. Because the moment you react, they win. They feed off your pain. Think about it. The people who hurt you, they weren't looking for an apology. They weren't looking for closure. They were looking for control. And the easiest way to control you, make you react. Every angry message, every tear-filled explanation, every desperate attempt to be understood, it fuels them. It gives them power over you. Because as long as you're talking, you're still engaged in their game. And let me tell you something about people like that. They don't listen. They don't reflect. They don't regret. They enjoy knowing they got under your skin. They love seeing you waste your energy on them. They don't care if your words are filled with rage or pleas. As long as you're still speaking, still explaining, still reacting, you're feeding their ego. So stop. Shut them out. Because when you go silent, when you refuse to explain, when you refuse to engage, that's when they start to break. Silence is not weakness. It's a weapon. You think silence means you lost. That's what they want you to believe. They'll call you weak. They'll say you're running away. They'll tell others you had nothing left to say because you were in the wrong. But here's the truth. The moment you stop explaining, they start questioning. And that terrifies them. Because suddenly, they don't know what's going on inside your head. They don't know if you're hurt. They don't know if you're plotting. They don't know if you've moved on. And nothing scares a manipulator more than losing control of the narrative. Your words. They give them answers. But your silence, it leaves them with doubts. Did you stop caring? Did you find someone better? Did you outgrow them? Are you done? The not knowing. It eats at them. It makes them spiral. It makes them obsess over you in ways you never imagined. And that's when they lose. You want to win? Go silent. Let them wonder. Let them overthink. Let them destroy themselves with the thoughts they can't silence. Because here's what you need to understand. Your silence will haunt them longer than your words ever could. So stop fighting battles with people who only wanted to watch you suffer. Stop explaining yourself to those who already made up their minds. And stop wasting your energy on people who don't deserve a single word from you. You want revenge? Disappear. Make them question everything. Make them realize what it feels like to be ignored, discarded, and forgotten. Because when you finally cut off their supply of attention, that's when they'll finally feel what you felt. Now it's your choice. You can keep screaming into the void. Keep begging them to understand. Keep giving them the reaction they want. Or you can shut them out. Completely. Forever. No more words. No more explanations. No more playing their game. Because once you do that, you don't just win. You own them. You were taught the wrong way to fight. You were taught to defend yourself with words, to explain your side, to make them see reason, to fight back when they hurt you. And for years you believed that's what strength looked like. You thought that standing up for yourself meant confrontation. The louder you were, the more power you had. But let me tell you something. You've been lied to. Because real power, it isn't found in anger. It's found in silence. And the second you realize that, everything changes. Every time you react, you give them control. Think about it. They push your buttons, and you explode. They lie about you, and you rush to defend yourself. They ghost you, and you go searching for answers. While you're out there, wasting your energy on them, they're watching. They're loving every second of it. Because every reaction you give them confirms one thing. You still care. And as long as they know you still care, they will keep playing games. They will keep pushing. They will keep lying. They will keep controlling you. And the worst part, you're doing it to yourself. Now imagine this. You stop responding. You stop explaining. You stop reacting completely. No calls, no texts, no social media posts, no last words, nothing. You erase them from your world like they never existed. And suddenly, they start panicking because they expected a fight. They expected you to scream, to cry, to beg. They expected you to break. But instead, you did the one thing they never prepared for. You disappeared. And now, they don't know what to do. Because silence is a mirror. It forces them to face themselves. It forces them to sit with the weight of what they did. And it destroys them. Because without your reaction, without your energy, they have nothing left to feed on. Silence does what words never could. It makes them wonder. It makes them overthink. It makes them question their own worth. Why? Because human beings hate the unknown. They hate uncertainty. They hate not having the upper hand. They hate not knowing if you're broken or if you're just done. Your silence is powerful because it forces them to sit with their own insecurities. And let me tell you something about people like that. They are terrified of themselves. That's why they need you. They need your reaction. They need your energy. They need you to validate them, even if it's through anger. When you go silent, when you refuse to play their game, you make them face the ugliest thing in the world, their own reflection. And that destroys them more than any words ever could. Real-world example. The one who reacted versus the one who stayed silent. Let me tell you a story. Two people got betrayed. The first one, they did what most people do. They fought back. They screamed. They sent paragraphs trying to make the other person understand their pain. And in the end, nothing changed. Because the one who hurt them, they didn't care. They never cared. And all that screaming, it only made them feel stronger. But the second person, they said nothing. No response. No explanation. No final words. They simply walked away. And what happened? At first, the person who betrayed them didn't care. They thought, oh, they're just mad. They'll come back. But weeks passed. Months passed. And suddenly they started thinking about them every single day. Why didn't they say anything? Why didn't they fight back? Why did they just leave? And before they knew it, the regret started sinking in. Because silence is haunting. And by the time they realized what they lost, it was too late. Why you need to go silent? Now you think speaking your mind will make them change. It won't. You think telling them how much they hurt you will make them regret it. It won't. Because people like that, they don't change because you told them to. They only change when they're forced to sit in their own darkness. And the only way to do that is to leave them in silence. No explanations, no warnings, just vanish. And watch how fast their world falls apart. What happens when you finally stop reacting? At first, they'll pretend they don't care. They'll act like they won. But in the back of their mind, something will shift. They'll start replaying every moment, every memory, every word they ever said to you. And slowly, the silence will eat them alive. They'll start wondering if they ever had control at all. If they ever meant anything to you. If you were always stronger than they thought. And when that realization hits, they'll never forget you. You wanted them to feel what you felt. Now they will. Because while you move on, they'll be stuck in the silence you left behind. And that's real power. Your silence will haunt them forever. There was a man who once believed in loyalty. He stood by people through their darkest days. He picked them up when they fell. He wiped their tears, defended them, and sacrificed his own happiness just to see them smile. But when he needed them, silence. The same people he had fought for, they were nowhere to be found. And when he finally confronted them, when he asked why, after everything, they had abandoned him, they laughed. They said he was too sensitive. They said he was making a big deal out of nothing. And at that moment, something inside him snapped. At first he tried to fight back. He wanted to make them understand. He wanted them to feel the betrayal, the loneliness, the weight of all the times he had put them first. So he spoke, he argued, he poured his heart out. But the more he spoke, the more they dismissed him. The more he tried to explain, the more they twisted his words. And in that moment, he realized there was nothing he could say that would ever make them care. His words were wasted on people who thrived on his pain. So he made a decision that would change everything. No more explanations, no more arguments, no more trying to be heard by people who had already made up their minds. He vanished. No goodbyes, no warnings, just silence. And at first, they thought they won. They laughed about how he finally gave up. They convinced themselves that he was weak, that he was suffering without them. But as the days turned into weeks, something changed. They started checking their phones, waiting for his messages. But nothing came. They scrolled through their social media, looking for any sign of him. But there was nothing. And for the first time, they felt something they never expected to feel. Regret. Not because they cared, not because they wanted to fix things, but because for the first time, they were the ones being ignored. When silence becomes their own prison, they started asking around. Hey, have you heard from him? I wonder what he's up to. you think he's okay. At first, they pretended not to care. But at night, when everything was quiet, when their phones weren't lighting up with his name, they started to overthink. Did he move on? Did he find better people? Did he stop caring? And the more they thought about it, the more it ate them alive. Because suddenly, they weren't in control anymore. They weren't the ones deciding when the conversation ended. They weren't the ones pulling the strings. They were powerless. The return that never came. They expected him to come back. They thought, he just needs time. He'll message us again. But weeks passed, months, and he never returned. They watched him from afar, hoping for even a glimpse of the person they once knew. But the version of him they used to control, he was gone. What remained was someone stronger, colder, untouchable. And suddenly, they realized they were the ones who had lost everything. Why this story is about you. You've been in his position. You've given and given, only to be left empty. You fought for people who never fought for you. And when you finally called them out, when you finally asked for basic respect, they made you feel like you were asking for too much. But now you know the truth. Words won't change them. Fighting back won't change them. The only thing that will make them feel what you felt is your silence. The power of walking away. Without a sound, you don't need to prove anything to them. You don't need to explain yourself. You don't owe them closure. You owe yourself peace. And that peace, it begins the moment you decide that your words are no longer up for debate. That your pain is no longer up for discussion. That your time is no longer up for waste. You disappear. You go silent. You stop playing their game. And then you watch, without a word, as they destroy themselves trying to figure out why. Because the truth is, once you master silence, you become untouchable. You were never weak. You were just too loyal. They made you believe that your silence was weakness. That if you didn't fight back, if you didn't scream, if you didn't chase after them for answers, you had lost. But here's the truth they don't want you to realize. You were never weak. You were never naive. You just had a heart too big for people too small. You believed in them. You trusted them. You gave them a version of you that was pure, genuine, real. And they took it for granted. They thought your kindness meant softness. They mistook your patience for desperation. They thought you needed them. But now they will learn. Because you don't need them. You never did. And the moment you realize that, that's the moment you become unstoppable. The power of letting go. Holding on is what broke you. Trying to make them understand. Trying to make them see what they did to you. Trying to fix things that were never meant to be fixed. But now you know. Some things are not meant to be repaired. Some people are not meant to be reasoned with. Some betrayals, they are not accidents. They are decisions. And if someone made the decision to hurt you, to lie to you, to betray you, to leave you when you needed them the most, then you need to make the decision to erase them from your life completely. No lingering words, no final messages, no looking back, just silence. Because when you let go, You don't just free yourself from them. You free yourself from the version of you that tolerated them. You don't need their apology. You need to move forward. You think you need closure. You don't. You think you need an apology. You don't. You think you need them to finally admit they were wrong. You don't. Because here's the thing about people like that. They don't change. They don't wake up one day full of regret. They don't magically realize what they lost. Number what they feel isn't regret. It's emptiness. Not because they lost you, but because they lost the control they once had over you. They missed the attention, the power, the validation. They miss knowing that they could break you and you would still come back. But you are never coming back. And that's what haunts them the most. Not the memories, not the history, not the love you gave, but the fact that you finally saw through them. And now they can't reach you. They will try to come back, but you are no longer the same. They will try to find a way back in. They always do. Maybe a random message months from now. Maybe a casual, "Hey, I was just thinking about you." Maybe an attempt to make you feel guilty. Maybe a sudden apology, as if they finally realized what they did. But don't be fooled. It's not because they've changed. It's because they've realized that you have. You are no longer the person who would entertain their nonsense. You are no longer the person who would justify their actions. You are no longer desperate for their approval. And when they come back, you won't even need to say a word. Your silence, it will say everything. Your power lies in the fact that you don't care anymore. The moment you stop caring, you become dangerous. Not in a reckless way, not in a vengeful way, but in a way that makes you untouchable. Because when you truly stop caring, when you truly move on, nothing they do can affect you anymore. They can gossip, they can spread lies, they can act like they never needed you. But deep down, they know. They lost something they will never find again. Someone who was loyal, someone who was real, someone who stood by them when no one else did. And now they have to live with the fact that they can never go back. And that's what will destroy them. Your life without them will be the best revenge. You don't need to prove anything to them. You don't need to show them that you're doing better. You don't need to make them jealous. All you need to do is keep growing. Keep working on yourself. Keep focusing on your goals. Keep surrounding yourself with people who actually value you. Because one day they will look at your life and they will realize that you did what they never expected. You moved on without them. And that will haunt them more than any words ever could. They thought they could break you. They thought they could discard you, and you'd still come crawling back. They thought they had power over you. But they were wrong. Because you were never the weak one. You were never the desperate one. You were always becoming. And now, as they sit there, wondering why you're no longer fighting, no longer explaining, no longer chasing after them, they will realize the truth, that you were always stronger than they ever gave you credit for. And that the moment you stopped speaking was the moment you truly won. Because in the end, your silence hurts them more than your words ever could. They thought they won. They thought they could walk away and leave you drowning in pain. They thought they had broken you. But what they didn't realize was that in your silence, you were rebuilding. That every unanswered call, every ignored message, every time you refused to react, you were taking your power back. And now they sit there, staring at their phone, refreshing your profile, waiting for a response that will never come. They feel the emptiness that they once forced on you. They feel the rejection that they thought you would never have the strength to give. And the worst part, they know they can't undo it. Because the moment you chose silence, the moment you stopped reacting, you became something they never expected. Untouchable. They thought you would always be there. You see, they never thought you would leave. They thought you would always be available. They thought they could manipulate you, play games with you, push you away, and you would still be waiting. But they were wrong, because while they were busy taking you for granted, you were learning, you were watching, you were realizing who they truly were. And the moment you went silent, that's the moment they lost control. The pain of knowing you're gone. Forever now. It's too late. They want to reach out, but they know they can't. They want to fix things, but they know you won't let them. They want you back, but they know you've changed. And nothing haunts a person more than knowing they lost someone who actually cared. You were the one who would have stayed. You were the one who would have forgiven them. You were the one who would have done anything to make things right. But now they see the one truth they never wanted to face. They pushed you too far. And once someone like you is done, there is no coming back. Your growth will be their worst nightmare. You don't need revenge. You don't need to prove anything to them. You don't need to post about how much better your life is without them. You just need to keep moving, because your silence, that is enough. Every day that you focus on yourself, every day that you become stronger, every day that you stop thinking about them, is a day that they realize they never had as much power over you as they thought. And when they see you thriving without them, that's when they will truly feel what you felt. Not because you wanted them to suffer, not because you wanted revenge, but because they finally have to sit in the reality they created. They lost you, and they can never get you back. You have two choices now. You can waste your energy trying to make them regret what they did. You can try to prove that you were the best thing that ever happened to them. Or you can disappear from their world completely. You can move in silence. You can take every bit of pain they gave you and turn it into something powerful. Because at the end of the day, you don't need their regret. You don't need their apology. You don't need their validation. You only need you. Your silence is their karma. They expected you to beg. They expected you to break. They expected you to fight for a spot in their life. But instead, you walked away without a sound. And that will haunt them forever. Because while you're out there living, growing, and succeeding, they will be stuck in one place, replaying the moment they lost you. So remember this, your silence. It isn't weakness. It's the loudest way to say, I don't need you anymore. And And once they finally understand that, they will never recover. There was a time when you would have written a long message explaining your pain. There was a time when you would have begged for them to just understand. There was a time when you would have stayed up all night, wondering what you did wrong. But that time is over. You don't chase, you don't argue, you don't fight for people who never fought for you. You simply walk away. And when they finally realize what they lost, you won't even be looking back. If you've ever been betrayed, if you've ever been played, if you've ever been taken for granted, then remember this. Your silence will do more damage than your words ever could. So don't waste your time explaining yourself. Don't waste your energy proving your worth. Just go silent, move in silence, win in silence. And when they finally realize what they lost, let them suffer in their own regret.